we have to look at Taiwan. This on the first one. The first one is the earthquake. The first one is flooding. You can see in 50 years, the green, the yellow, the blue parts will be, ideally not, but should be flooded. And the second image is where the path of typhoon. Most of the typhoon pass through this way, so you can see most of the Taiwan on the east coast is basically under the danger of typhoon. And this is where the fault line is, the red, and this is the point of earthquake. So this is the impact of the earthquake. So I don't know why the hell are we living in Taiwan, because we are constantly in danger of whatever, maybe from mainland China, from political turmoil inside Taiwan, from earthquake, from flooding, from typhoon. So we sit exactly on this fault line here, and how dense how dense is that fault line going all the way through Philippines, of course. We are all in that zone. So I guess for Philippines, Iran, even we all have to deal with our topological geographical disadvantage. Somehow the disadvantage is our advantage in design architecture, not an advantage in a way that we can solve the problem, but reflect on. And such a reflection will be more or less how we see, how this architecture, where is this architecture from? And going very quickly to this building is House of Roof, which is the building I built and designed before I won this competition, Columbarium. You can see this is a composition of roofs. You can see that whenever we visit the place, we first see our first impression of the place, wherever it is the impression of the roofs, because the roof is the first thing that mediates between the shelter and the sky and the nature. And on the right-hand side is the side behind us. By law, we are only allowed to build whatever is inside with the arches. But they added 4 different kinds of different roof. First is the roof on the top to prevent the wind and shelter the sun. And so most of the time we have a worship center on the top, or the maids living in on the top. And second is this fake, Renaissance roof. For them it's Renaissance, because the master bedroom is sitting behind. So this roof is more or less not functional, but more a gesture than a gesture of wealth. And then on the lower side, you can see there's this roof, which is actually a roof for their garage. This part is illegal. So you can see that there are a lot of add-on and temporary and deep-fake roofs somehow that in this building, but it's actually in Taiwan. It's everywhere you go, it looks like that. So I was thinking about translating this into one kind of roof with different depths. It can be balcony, can be terrace, can be shading, can be roof in a way that to translate this local phenomena. So this is the result. We try to locate the roof in a way and stack them together, in a way that the rain will always fall to the garden, so we never have to collect the water again. And then the sun will be reaching, for instance, this is a sleeping room that we have a smaller gap. This is here's the master bedroom is facing the terrace in the front, where we're receiving more sunlight. On the lower part is the living room that we have a private garden. So the roof and the terrace depths of it is actually a reflection or the result of the foreground inside. So that's for living people. How do we do with the death? So we won this competition, and the geographical condition, the building, we talk about the temperature is very north. The building we saw just now is very south. Here is Hsinchu. It's a very windy area. You can see this light area. Most of the 75% of the wind coming from the north flows through Hsinchu, and then 25% of the wind going from southwest blowing north. So Hsinchu is actually a windy city, and rice noodle. The rice noodle, how to make dry rice noodle, because Hsinchu have a lot of rice noodle because it's a windy city. That they have a lot of facility and they have a geographical advantage to dry noodle. So a lot of this rice noodle is produced in Hsinchu. So this is actually a monument, if we can say, monument nowadays. What does it mean? So the meaning of monument for me in this case is not only for the burial but as well for the wind. It's a tower to celebrate wind. So this is the Columbarium in Taiwan, stack up, and all the walls are enclosed. Very small opening on the side, and inside is actually with air conditioning. Although it's for desks, I don't know where they have air conditioning inside. So on the right hand side, south side, we have 70,000 urn behind it already. This is existing building. We are given in this competition to build this another 50,000 urn capacity columbarium on this side. So again, we have to come back to ask ourselves, this again, it's structured by the ocean. Again, what is this building play a role in such a sacred space? And what is the public nature of this sacred space? So what I found very interesting is that the wall never plays a very important role as a carrier of memory in Taiwan, unlike in Middle East area or in Europe. Most of the wall, a lot of wall plays a very important role. Walls in Taiwan, unless it's shrine, because it's more uplifting, more solid, more kind of implying a sense of eternity. So war was never really as a meaning of carrier memory. So so I was thinking, what is infrastructure for public of collective memory? How do we do that in Taiwan? And then another thing is about monuments. In this case, I really want to do monuments because, now it's Halloween time. We play with fear. Somehow in Taiwan, when we deal with the death, we have to face the death. So it's unlike in Europe or most parts of the world. It's part of a memory. You kind of celebrate it, you think about it, but in Taiwan, it's always part of the fear, ghost story, we are afraid of it, So a lot of this kind of columbarium or graveyard are actually forbidden and very scary. And how do you take away that sense of loss and deal with it positively? I thought of building a monument, as monumental as I can, that everyone can recognize it. Because if you can recognize it, everyone can remember what it is. You won't have a fear anymore because you know every corner of it. So this is the first thing that I want to do, a project that there's no corner, there's no fear. It's as open as we can, as light as we can, and as monumental as we can, so that everyone knows what it is in a way that when they go into the building, they won't carry such sense of fear, and they will be able to look at the wall and think of the wall as a carrier memory and really pray or think of or remember quietly in peace to remember their past, which is the intention of the project. But on the right-hand side, this is how we, every year we have 3 times this festival to go to the burial ground. So we actually put a lot of food on the table to ask him to eat. But although it's probably a more popular but in a way more fearless because they're so crowded and so loud and so it's almost like a market that you don't feel afraid. Everyone just put the stuff there for maybe a couple hours and then bring home and eat it because you are there to salute the death. So that's the celebration. So in a way, it's actually very different than how we understand the burial space in Europe. And of course, this is one of the example. The Brion Cemetery by Carl Scarpa, this is how we inspired this, we were inspired by this project a lot. Of course, my work has been influenced by him a lot. So a lot of burial ground, doesn't matter if the Egyptian tomb or, pyramids, whatever, there's always this slanted wall sitting on the ground. But what I like about this wall is actually from the outside, it's very rough, from the inside, it's polished, and you have this angle of the sharp angle and this, I don't know how to term it, this wide angle. And one angle actually creates a shadow, one angle is actually catches the light. And we would like to think about architecture like a church as a conduit, but here architecture is almost like a carrier, and we're carrying our memory. So before this project, I did the project in Germany. It's a Columbarium St. Michael in Rhine. It's a very small town, and this is a church, built in 70s. It's one of the early work of brick brutalist architecture, which I like very, very much. So we did a competition to renovate this church. So when I did this competition, I actually want to make sure the wall of the urn is exactly where the sitting area was. So that was actually the reason why we won the competition, because we want to have this 600 urn to be sitting in as a congregation, and they sit there, and then most of the people who built this church in the 60s and 50s, when they die, they can choose their place and go back to where actually they belong. So I pick a very warm apple tree veneer, because I want to have not only this veneer fitting to the color of the brick as well, that I want to give a very warm feeling rather than a very dark and uncomfortable feeling. And we would like to match with the benches of the church, of course. So this cross is actually wood veneer as well, from the same wood that in the daytime you can see that was lit by the skylights above, but in the nighttime, this cross will be lit. So we'll go back to this Columbarium. To talk about Columbarium, we cannot talk about it without Rossi. About fragmentation. Fragmentation is one of the most important phenomena about the society, particularly in Taiwan, because of the colonial history. And this is a city of death somehow. So what we do is how do we think of this as a monument for death, and a monument of win? And we have placed this building, of course, of fulfilling function. We can see that most of the tower or the bookshelf, the urns are placing in such a direction in a way that there's no corner, because they are all parallel to each other. As well, we try to split it in half. So almost like a donut shape, like the church we built. The donuts in the church, the outside is void, and the donuts of this Columbarium, the outside is solid. The wall slanted outside, towards outside. For the house, the roof is slanted inward, and we here slanted outward, and stack on top of each other. When we stack on top of each other, we try to collect the wind and the water into this gutter in a way that we will have a chance to plant the trees and trees and vegetation on the inside the wall. So what we do is that we want to make this as open as we can, that we have the faster wind blow, bring the cold wind out, suck up the warmer wind underneath. So it's for the sustainability. We would like to have this building without air condition, without door, without window, and give it a chance to have a nature habitat without the facility of artificial facility, without artificial facility to control the climate. So we actually plan this as a multi-purpose, multi-religion space. So with you can see there's an invisible cross inside on the top. Of course, this is existing building, as well. You can see it's very, very religious. There's a yin and yang kind of a circle situation, but here it's almost like a pinwheel. So first thing we look at is this loggia, the Alderasi loggia. So for us, this loggia is the location of this event. So this loggia not only plays a very important role to connect the old building to the new building as a buffer between this two zone, as well as a sheltered area for events. So here, this landing, we can see the construction is actually coming from three different things. First, we don't want to see columns. Basically, it's the plate and plate stack on top of each other. So the construction has to be spanning over the whole site. So we have no, so when we're standing underneath, you will have no such a column that blocks the view. So it's a plate and plate. So first, the construction has to be hold the side of the wall. And second, the wall is constructed in a way that as a beam to support the whole plate. So instead of having a reverse, instead of having beam underneath, it's a reverse beam going upward to support the whole plate. And third is that the foam board, we need to stack the foam board on top of that to structure on top of that to be able to hold the foam board on the side. So the thickness of the wall is thicker than normal because we need to tap on top of this wall to be able to construct the foam board on the top. So the size, the plate, the angle is coming from the nature, coming from the construction without the interpretation of the architect. So this is actually what we want to achieve, that we would like to have the wind and the rain blow on top of this wall, trips on top of this gutter, which we would like to have some vegetations on the wall to give the wall a sense of life and hope with the light. So that is the construction, as we were talking about just now, how we actually planned it in a way that will have minimum wind, so minimum rain coming into the building, yet and the maximum possibility for this building to be ventilated. Keystone plays a very important role in construction. Here, the keystone is reversed. Like most of the gesture we do is reversed in this case. Light coming from the front instead of light coming from the top. Instead of light coming from the top rather than coming from the side. The construction is reversed. The beams on the top, the beams rather the beams underneath the plate. So here the keystone is not dealing with the keystone is seated in a way it's suspended from a precast steel construction. So it's actually being held by the construction rather than using the gravity to anchor and stabilize the gravity. Is completely reversed. When we use the most heavy thing and sitting on top, it's almost a reverse of this boat-like construction stacking on top of each other. So this is the foam board, which is very different from the foam board we saw from the church. Now you can see that this is a different kind of construction of the foam board. This is more a Japanese sort of construction. The other is more our interpretation with our local design, local construction company. So this is the mock-up. We intentionally try to divide the mock-up. Divide the surface of the inner surface into 7 different zones to give the inner surface more like a shingle-like feeling, and to lighten the wall and give the wall more life. And but the purpose of that is that we were only able to cast the concrete in the middle. So we need to find a horizontal zone to stop the casting. So in a way that this is actually not only hiding the casting of the control joint as well, that give the wall a lighter feeling as well, carry more um, the roughness, to contrast with the life in front of it. So this is when we finish casting the concrete. So we look at the loggia. It's about 800-meter long. And then when you're standing in the loggia, you don't see anything on the side. But when we're standing in the middle, looking in the opposite direction, you can see the courtyard's relationship with our columbarium. So this is when the event, every year, 3 times event, we will go to say hello to our ancestors. So we will be able to separate 3 different kind of behavior. First is this more ceremonial, noisy noisy condition, and then second will be inside this ritual space where we say where we let's say goodbye to our loved ones, and then inside is this is the first floor. It's more religious, more spiritual, and then going all the way, So this is actually the memorial space, and then you can see on the top, we have a roofscape to look at the ocean. It's afterwards, when we have the plantation finished. On the left hand side is the keystone light, the skylight. On the right hand side, you can see how we actually plan the place to catch the rain for the vegetation to grow. This is the picture now in the middle of this very heavy keystone held by wood louver. And wherever we go inside the building, it's very interesting that how we feel it's always monumental at the same time, lit and in the evening, we would like to see that as a stacking lightly. The building was flying almost, although it's very, very heavy. We want to see that as a very light element, flying on top of each other. So that is about it.
Apart from I believe it's being used for this as a columbarium and as a way to put the herbs. Is this building used for other activities as well, like during the year, or is it mainly for like for specific purpose only?
I will actually go into the next one. Sorry, it's because I set up the 3-second things. Well, because this is actually our show, and there were concerts held because there are steps and floors, and there are some, they were able to just stay on the side to look inside. So this is an art exhibition. I mean, there are constantly art exhibition inside, around or inside this building, as well. There are some concerts being played inside this building. And surely, if you think of this as a columbarium, most of the events are actually always related to the death.
And then I guess you mentioned from the start that you wanted to challenge how people wanted to perceive death through this building. What can you say based on how it is being perceived right now? In your own opinion, you say, or based on your own observation, do you think it was a success on the part of the building, that it has somehow changed the way they view their death?
This building has been very heavily criticized in Taiwan, and I would say a lot of it is coming from it's been designed outside the norm of the ritual of burial, and heavily criticized. It's really not easy to take because I have criticism about how can the rain go into the building, for instance. They feel their ancestors being bothered, I say, and heavily criticized because some part of the building is we have waters in the middle. We have water pond in the middle, and they actually don't like the water in the middle. Although I feel the water gives this reflection a more pronounced in a way, and then we have always the water coming from the middle. Then in the middle, I would like to have the nature plays a more important role if giving hope. But our ritual burial doesn't allow such a water on top of anything. I think that's a bad sign or bad omen, although I can never explain why. And they would like me to close the light well in the middle because they don't like to have the water dripping into the building, because water dripping the roof is a representation of poorness for some reason. The roof is not fixed properly. To fight against that is quite painful. To explain that we should see it differently. When you bury a person on a mountain, it's always outside. This is a mountain become inside, but such abstraction require a lot of translation, understanding, and knowledge. I think it's difficult. I think it's sometimes counterproductive to explain. And I actually believe it takes time for them to understand. Doesn't matter in a sustainability way or in a ritual ritual of burial way. Gradually they will change. They are changing already, and there are perception which they are more positive, and they enjoy being there. I have people telling me, you have to send me 1 or 2 urn because I want to be there. I think it takes time for this building to be accepted. And first question would be like, is this building's not finished, or why? Because it should be with tile put it on the surface. Why does it look like that? So it's not easy.
Yeah, there's I guess it really comes when you really try to challenge the norms through your architecture. But I guess it happened to the past buildings as well, not only different architecture around the world. Maddie, you have final
That's
questions?
probably the architect's problem in the whole world. Like they have to convince
yeah, that's
for
true.
every single decision.
Yeah.
I have
every
a question.
time you want to change. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I have a question in terms of sustainability and the airflow system. Like, did you test this system? That's how this makes any difference without having any like facilities or electrical equipment in the building?
The inspiration of this is coming from the typical building type in Middle East. In the desert area, you have this wind tower. So we have a firm in Germany. It's called Chancellor. And Chancellor has been helping a lot of architects, including Renkohaus, a lot of famous architects do all the, this is called climatic engineering. So the slinging of the wall, the speed of the wind, the flow of the wind, the multi-direction of the wind, that's why it's like it's like a fan somehow. Say inside. It's not a fan, sorry, it's like a donut, because you receive one way or the other, doesn't mean which angle you will have equal amount of wind coming into the building. Not equal, surely, but there was always equal chance amount of wind to come into the building. So we have this firm to do all the calculation for us. And when we do the calculation, there are several aspects we have to deal with. First is the rain. The rain comes with the wind, so the rain cannot go into the building so much. So we actually, inside the columbarium, we have a section, you can see. So when the wind blows in there, the rain comes in as well, that we would like to have the rain not going into the building too deep. So we have created a second layer here. So the rain, there's a sliding door on the side. The wind can go through the top, but the rain will not go in. So these are actually all kind of calculated, but surely every year there are 10, 15 days that is beyond the norm, have been heavily criticized by the norm by this 10 days, because we have always typhoon, we have always extra heavy torrential rain, and sometimes the water going into the building. So yes, it's not easy to deal with it. Calculation based on probability and what is the most possible scenario, but most of the time I'm criticized by this 5 to 10%, which is beyond the calculation.
I get that. But what's interesting is that we all have kind of similar approach in the ancient building, like in the whole world, the type of wind catcher and how they use the nature to make this comfort level of temperature and air circulation inside the building.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Even from the previous guests that we had, they always tend to bring this type of how to deal with the climate. It's all similar.
Yeah, and it's true. I mean, I think we learn from the past, and then we want to look at the heritage, and because those are born from the climates without any technology. So you can see, obviously, we all try to go back to the back and then try to look at that as a chance for us to develop something that's beautiful, sustainable, and reasonable, and focus on how we look into the future, how this material can be, I was heavily criticized in Germany, this being elected by, German Architecture Chamber, both project as a German Architecture Prize, but every time in the final 10, they say, why concrete building? We don't like concrete building because it's not sustainable, but it's not true. This building is going to last for 150 years, 200 years. Most wood building is maximum 40 years. How do we look at the durability when we want to think about architecture? And this is an earthquake zone. So some of the criticism, I took in Germany about why I built so much concrete is that they have no idea what kind of climate we're dealing with. They have no idea what kind of earthquake or endangering climate or geographical condition I have to deal with in Taiwan. Sadly, they took a very high moral higher ground and just saying, why aren't we using hybrid material? We are. What is about, it's possible when it's left.